Okay, so how's everybody doing? So, composing the overpass scene. So this title for this particular episode is really just a sort of an umbrella term for composing a larger scene or a more complicated one, only because this is kind of where I'm at right now in the linear sense of development. And I never talked about this actually, about composing this scene really in the two previous episodes on the overpass. And the reason why I'm doing this now is I couldn't do it before because I didn't have the overpass built and it wouldn't make sense, right? So that's why. That's part of the difficulty of doing a chronological vlog of a layout build of this particular nature, because it involves so much content that you have to try to release it in a type of way that pulls people in so they can grasp the greater context of what's going on. So that's the reason why I'm doing it. I don't see a lot of people doing that out there, so I'm attempting to do it. And I think for the most part, those that are original subscribers kind of know what's going on by now. So just to touch briefly on the overpass, because it's sort of relative to what I want to talk about right here with this scene. This scene to the right of it is a whole nother chapter. That's months away, right? Even though I'm thinking about it and drafting drawings and so on. But let me just mention this first briefly. When you build, or at least when I build, I make everything a loose component, right? Like I can go like this with this. I can say, well, I wonder what that would look like that if I hadn't laid all the track yet. But you can see, right, how just by shifting a model, you can just change the whole nature of the scene, right? And composition, like I mentioned earlier in a comment, that I spend as much time composing a scene as I do building the models, right? And for good reason. It's the same way when you compose a painting. Why are paintings successful? Like, why is a painting successful? If you really look at a painting, just look at all the shapes and the composition and the balance. There's nothing symmetrical about it. Everything has an angle to it. Everything blends or merges together. But that takes work. Work meaning time, patience. I sit back and stare at, well, I've stared at this layout more than anybody, but I literally stand here with a whole coffee some mornings just looking at stuff. Going back and saying, does this look right? Because now that I add this, what does it do to this scene? What does this idea do to this? What is it going to do? I don't know yet, but when you work in a linear way like this, like unfolding the scene, that's the way I like to do it, the way I'm used to doing it. I can make it all work eventually, right? Okay, so I mean, you could shift this in terms of composing the overpass scene, which is really the other scenes now attached to it or are relative to it. I could shift this way too, right? And then now I've just opened up this whole area here for a scene that pulls you in. And then I look down here and I'll be able to see Ipex plastics down. But then when I move over this way, because this is a big horseshoe shaped layout, and I'll just show you that quickly, just so that you have some context. I'll show you what I mean by this layout being like a horseshoe shape. So when you walk into it, you're immersed in it, like a traditional diorama or story in the round, like a miniature museum kind of, depiction of a scene, okay? So you can see what I mean, how you sort of sew all the little scenes together, and composition is the umbrella term for making it all happen, right? And if you do each scene patiently and spend time with it, you'll make it all work together. If you're in a hurry and you just start plunking things down, well, there's no continuity, right? Even though your imagination tries to filter out all the discontinuity. It's just not there. So that's why I spend the time that I do, and I try things. I try hundreds of different, like even if I move this over like a couple of inches, it changes everything. Like here. If I move it back over here, it might change what's going on over here in this scene, which I haven't built yet, but I have cardboard mock-ups of. So now that I'm on the cardboard mock-up stage, let's just move this overpass out of the way, which is nice, so it doesn't get bumped. This is just a filler stand-in. It's an idea based on some photos that I took down in New Westminster, just off the SRY interchange where the CNCP and SRY comes in, which crosses the bridge from Surrey. But I want to try to instill a hyper-compressed, vignetted sort of signature scene here of New Westminster. And then there's the overpass divider scene that sort of ends the chapter, and then beyond this is another story, right? But right here, I want to create a new story of this sort of back alley look, right? And this scene that I'm trying to develop here is being freelance, but with prototypical subjects, like this actual scene in reality, which I'll just show you a couple of quick pics of. Okay, so this scene in reality does have a type of ramp to a big parking lot that's kind of in front of it, and there's tracks underneath like this, right? So it's prototypically inspired, but freelanced in terms of its practical build and application, all right? Okay, so this is what I'm going to be focusing on next, this area here. I want to create a kind of urban, so we have this marine front, and all its operations and 2 or 3 industries there with the interchange. Then there's this sort of almost a rural, like a hint of, which is everywhere in British Columbia, this kind of thing. A sort of break here just to soften, just to transition into the next scene, which is going to be this one here. And what I'm going to do here is I'll probably revise this structure. However it pans out, it'll be subject to a lot of changes, as most of you know, because a lot of people understand this. This will be kind of a porched area with the rock face coming down here. Like this tapers off this rock area. And then there'll be sort of a cantilevered porch area, maybe sort of a cafe, I'm not sure yet. And then I really like these older buildings, that sort of slum landlord. Like I really got a kick out of it when I went there. It was like the whole side of the buildings were just horrible, like erosion and decrepit state of plaster, steel and wood and concrete, vines and rot. And then whoever owned the buildings decided to put brand new facings on the buildings so that when you viewed it from the parking lot, it didn't look so bad. But really underlying, those buildings should be condemned. So I thought that would be a really neat kind of transition from the forested area where there'd be a lot of suggestion of weather and just rough wilderness, then this kind of building that is attempting to create a sort of a facade in reality, the sort of a fake kind of reality, underlying this sort of artificial cosmetic look. You know, I think it would make for a really great model and character scene. And down here, I'm going to have a parking lot with all kinds of, I mean, who knows what can go on down here. I can have some old wrecks, some cars down here, and, you know, and then with the overpass going underneath, it's very reminiscent of the actual scene where there's a parking lot, an elevated parking lot with SRY Railroad, CN and CP actually, but not in this case necessarily. But this scene still mirrors the prototypical inspirations that I'm working on. So that's what I mean by just composing a scene, and in this case, in relation to the overpass, okay? So thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned. Feel free to subscribe because there's so much more content and exciting builds coming up ahead. And I'm going to be spending some time here. This is going to be a lot of fun, okay? So cheers and happy modeling.